Listen to me closely, because what I am about to say is not light. It is not casual, and it is not meant to pass over your ears and disappear. Something is shifting around you, even if nothing looks different yet. There is a quiet rearranging taking place beneath the surface of your life. You have felt it in the pauses, in the restlessness you could not explain, in the strange sense that where you are no longer fits the person you are becoming. This is not confusion, this is not delay, this is movement. You are moving somewhere beautiful all of a sudden, and the suddenness is not chaos, it is the signature of God. There are moments when God moves slowly, patiently shaping a soul over years. And then there are moments when God moves swiftly, decisively, without warning, because the time has fully ripened. What feels sudden to you has been prepared for a long time in the unseen. God does not rush, and God does not forget. When movement comes quickly, it is not because God is late, it is because everything is finally ready. You are not being pushed out, you are being drawn forward. You are not losing ground, you are gaining vision. And even if you feel unsteady right now, understand this: the ground beneath you is not giving way, it is being replaced. You have been faithful in places that never applauded you. You have endured seasons that drained you quietly. You have stayed when leaving would have been easier, and you have trusted when clarity was absent. None of that was wasted. God is not careless with obedience, and God is not blind to endurance. Every unseen tear, every restrained reaction, every moment you chose integrity over escape has been counted. And now, the weight you carried is lifting. Not because it was light, but because it is no longer yours to carry. You are moving somewhere beautiful, but beauty does not always announce itself with comfort first. Sometimes it begins with disruption. Sometimes it starts with God touching things you thought were stable and revealing that they were only familiar. Familiarity is not the same as destiny. Comfort is not the same as calling. God will unsettle what you have learned to survive in, so that you can step into what you were designed to thrive in. If things are shifting faster than you expected, do not panic. Acceleration does not mean recklessness when God is the one leading. There are doors opening that you did not knock on. There are conversations emerging that you did not plan. There are opportunities aligning that you did not campaign for. This is how God moves when a season changes. You did not manipulate this. You did not force this. You did not earn this through performance. This is grace in motion. This is divine timing unfolding. And even if your mind is still catching up, your spirit already knows. This is not random. You are leaving a place where you learned endurance, but you are entering a place where you will learn expansion. Endurance teaches you how to stand. Expansion teaches you how to build. Where you are going will require more of you. Not more struggle, but more vision. Not more proving, but more trust. God is not relocating you to drain you. God is relocating you to reveal you. The version of you that survived where you were cannot remain the same where you are going. That is why the transition feels intense. Growth always demands release. Let go of the idea that beauty must look gentle at first. Sometimes beauty arrives disguised as urgency. Sometimes it arrives through decisions you never thought you would make so quickly. But hear this clearly: when God moves suddenly, it is because delay would harm you more than movement. Staying would cost you more than stepping forward. God sees what is forming ahead and what is decaying behind. God does not pull you forward to confuse you. God pulls you forward to protect you. You have outgrown certain environments, even if they once nurtured you. What once sustained you now restricts you. What once taught you now limits you. This is not failure, it is fulfillment. Growth always creates distance between who you were and where you began. Do not mourn what God is asking you to release as if it were a loss. It served its purpose. Honor it, bless it, and step forward. God never asks for release without providing replacement. You are not being moved into uncertainty, you are being moved into alignment. Alignment feels unfamiliar at first because it demands honesty. You cannot carry old habits into new assignments. You cannot bring yesterday's fears into tomorrow's responsibility. God is refining your discernment, sharpening your awareness, and stretching your capacity, not to overwhelm you, but to prepare you. Where you are going will require clarity, not confusion, courage, not hesitation, stillness, not striving. There is a beauty waiting for you that is not cosmetic, it is structural. A beauty that comes from order, peace, and purpose. A beauty that rests in knowing you are where God intended you to be. This is not about scenery, it's about alignment of soul. You could be anywhere physically and still be misplaced spiritually. But when God moves you, the beauty follows, because peace follows obedience. You will recognize it not by excitement alone, but by the deep settling of your spirit. Do not underestimate how quickly God can change your surroundings when your inner posture is ready. One decision, one moment of surrender, one act of trust, and suddenly everything rearranges. This is not instability, this is divine orchestration. God is not dismantling your life, God is repositioning it. And even if you feel like you are walking without a full map, understand this, God never reveals the entire journey at once, because trust is built step by step, not all at once. You are moving somewhere beautiful, and beauty requires room. That is why certain attachments are loosening. That is why certain conversations feel finished. That is why certain ambitions no longer excite you the way they once did. God is clearing space, not because you lack vision, but because your vision is expanding. What used to satisfy you cannot contain what is coming. Do not cling to what God is gently removing. Resistance will only create pain, where surrender would create peace. There is nothing accidental about the timing of this shift. It is not too early and it is not too late. It is precise. God does not move according to your anxiety or your impatience. God moves according to purpose. And when purpose calls, comfort must yield. You are not being rushed, you are being summoned. This is not pressure, it is invitation. An invitation to step into a place where your gifts will breathe, your faith will deepen, and your life will bear fruit beyond survival. You may feel exposed right now, as if familiar coverings have been removed. That vulnerability is not weakness, it is readiness. God does not hide what God intends to use. Where you are going, authenticity will matter more than appearance. Integrity will matter more than approval. Obedience will matter more than applause. God is teaching you to stand without leaning on what once supported you, because where you are going, God alone will be your foundation. Do not use the speed of the change with lack of preparation. You have been prepared in silence. You have been trained through patience. You have been strengthened through endurance. God has already built what is necessary within you. The external move is only catching up to the internal work. You are not behind. You are not unqualified. You are not stepping into something beyond you. You are stepping into something that has been waiting for you. There will be moments when you look back and wonder how you arrived here so quickly. You will remember the days when movement felt impossible, when doors felt sealed, when prayers felt unanswered, and you will realize that those delays were not denials, they were design. God was aligning people, circumstances, and timing in ways you could not see. When the moment came, it came all at once, not to overwhelm you, but to reveal the fullness of God's faithfulness. You are not alone in this transition. God does not send you ahead without going before you. Every step you take has already been measured by divine wisdom. Every challenge you will face has already been accounted for. You are not walking into uncertainty. You are walking into provision that has not yet been revealed. Trust is not believing that nothing will go wrong. Trust is believing that God will remain sovereign no matter what unfolds. As you move, resist the urge to explain yourself to everyone. Some people will not understand the suddenness. Some will question the timing. Some will interpret your movement as instability rather than obedience. You do not owe clarity to those who are not called to walk with you. God does not require consensus to move you. God requires surrender. Walk quietly, move faithfully, let the fruit speak later. Where you are going will challenge your perception of what is possible. You will be asked to think beyond limitation, beyond fear, beyond the boundaries you once accepted as permanent. God is expanding your capacity to receive, not just materially, but spiritually. More responsibility, more influence, more depth. Beauty is not shallow. Beauty has weight, and God is strengthening you to carry what is coming without losing yourself in it. This move will refine your priorities. You will discover what truly matters and what only demanded your attention without feeding your soul. Distractions will fall away, clarity will sharpen, and peace, real peace, will become your anchor. Not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of God's nearness. That is the beauty you are moving toward. A life aligned, ordered, and grounded in divine purpose. Do not rush the adjustment. Sudden movement still requires intentional grounding. Give yourself permission to learn, to observe, to listen. God is not testing you in this new place. God is teaching you. There is wisdom waiting for you here. Wisdom that could not be accessed where you were before. Be humble enough to receive it, strong enough to apply it, faithful enough to remain open. May discover that what you thought you wanted is not exactly what you receive. And that is not disappointment, it is refinement. God does not always give what you expect. God gives what aligns. And alignment produces peace that expectation never could. Trust the difference. Trust the wisdom behind the redirection. God's perspective is not limited by your experience. You are moving somewhere beautiful, and beauty has a way of healing wounds you did not know were still open. In the right environment, your strength will return naturally. Your joy will no longer feel forced. Your faith will feel lighter, deeper, more anchored. This is not because the past was meaningless, but because its purpose has been fulfilled. You are not abandoning your history. You are building upon it. As you step forward, carry gratitude, not fear. Gratitude keeps you grounded. Fear distorts vision. God has not brought you this far to abandon you in transition. God finishes what God begins. The same hand that held you in struggle will steady you in expansion. The same voice that guided you through uncertainty will clarify your steps ahead. There will be confirmation, not always dramatic, but consistent. Peace that remains, doors that stay open, strength that renews. Pay attention to what brings life. Pay attention to what settles your spirit rather than agitates it. God often confirms direction through alignment rather than excitement. Let peace be your compass. You are not required to have everything figured out before you move. Obedience often precedes understanding. Clarity often comes in motion. God does not wait for perfection. God waits for willingness. Step with what you know. and trust God with what you do not. Faith is not the absence of questions, it is the decision to move despite them. This is not a temporary shift, this is not a detour, this is a transition with purpose. You are stepping into a chapter that will redefine how you see yourself, how you understand calling, and how you experience God's presence. Do not shrink back. Do not minimize the significance of this moment. Sacred transitions deserve reverence. One day, you will speak of this season as the moment everything changed, not because life became effortless, but because it became aligned. You will recognize the beauty not only in where you arrived, but in who you became along the way. God is not only moving your location, God is deepening your capacity to live fully, faithfully, and purposefully. Stand still for a moment and let this settle in you. You are not late, you are not lost, you are not mistaken. You are moving somewhere beautiful all of a sudden. Not because you forced it, but because God ordained it. Trust the movement. Honor the process and step forward with confidence, not in yourself, but in the wisdom, power, and sovereignty of God who leads you. As you keep moving, you will notice something subtle yet powerful happening within you. Your inner resistance is softening. The fear that once shouted now speaks in a whisper. The doubt that once paralyzed you now pauses before it challenges you. This is not because circumstances suddenly became easy, but because your trust in God has grown deeper. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet confidence that says, I will move even when I do not see everything yet. God is cultivating that strength in you, not the kind that boasts, but the kind that stands steady when the ground changes. There will be moments ahead when nostalgia tries to pull you backward, reminding you of what was familiar, what was predictable, what felt safe. Do not confuse familiarity with safety. Familiar places can still suffocate growth. God does not call you forward to deprive you, but to free you. The past may have shaped you, but it is not permitted to define you forever. Honor what was, but do not build an altar there. God lives in movement, and obedience keeps you aligned with that movement. You may also encounter resistance, not only from others, but from parts of yourself that grew comfortable in survival mode. Survival teaches caution. Calling teaches courage. Where you are going, fear-based decisions will no longer sustain you. God is inviting you to operate from trust rather than defense. This shift will feel uncomfortable at first because it demands honesty with yourself. You can no longer hide behind excuses or delay behind indecision. God is sharpening your discernment so that you move with intention, not impulse. Pay attention to the new desires emerging within you. Not every desire is distraction. Some are direction. God often plants longing before providing clarity. The hunger you feel is not emptiness, it is preparation. You are being ready to receive something that once would have overwhelmed you. God does not pour into vessels that are not prepared to hold what is given. The stretching you feel is evidence that capacity is increasing. As you step further into this new place, you will begin to recognize the difference between striving and alignment. Striving exhausts the soul, alignment energizes it. When you are where God has positioned you, effort still exists, but it is purposeful rather than draining. You will work, but you will not feel consumed. You will labor, but you will not feel lost. This balance is not accidental. It is the fruit of walking in divine order. Do not expect immediate perfection in this new season. Growth continues even in beauty. Challenges do not disappear simply because the setting changes. But the nature of the challenges will shift. They will refine rather than break you. They will stretch rather than crush you. God allows these moments not to test your worth, but to deepen your wisdom. Each obstacle will carry instruction. Each delay will carry insight. Nothing here is wasted. You may notice that your voice carries more weight now, not because you speak louder, but because you speak from experience. God has taken you through depths so that your words would have substance. Where you are going, authenticity would matter more than charisma. Truth will matter more than presentation. And God will use your lived obedience as testimony, even when you are not trying to prove anything at all. There will be a settling that happens, a deep inner confirmation that does not depend on constant reassurance. This is when you will know you have arrived where God intended you to be. Not because everything is perfect, but because your spirit is no longer restless. Peace will become your companion, not as an emotion that comes and goes, but as a steady awareness that you are aligned with God's will. This peace will guard you when uncertainty arises and ground you when success comes. Guard your humility in this place. Expansion can tempt pride if gratitude is forgotten. Remember where God met you. Remember the seasons when clarity was absent and strength felt scarce. Let remembrance keep you grounded. Gratitude keeps the heart teachable, and the teachable heart remains usable. God continues to lead those who remain open, not those who believe they have arrived. You will also learn the discipline of patience in a new way. Not the patience of waiting to escape, but the patience of building well. God is not in a hurry to rush you past lessons that will sustain you long term. Take your time to establish roots, strengthen foundations, let depth develop before visibility. What grows slowly often lasts longer. God values endurance over immediacy. As you grow into this new chapter, you will feel a stronger sense of responsibility, not as burden, but as stewardship. What God places in your hands now carries influence. Influence demands integrity. Integrity demands consistency. God trusts you with more because you have proven faithful with less. This is not entitlement, it is accountability. Walk carefully, not fearfully. Reverence keeps power from becoming misused. You will find that your prayers change. They will become less about escape and more about alignment. Less about asking for signs and more about asking for wisdom. Less about control and more about surrender. This is maturity. God shapes prayer as God shapes purpose. Let your communication with God remain honest, reverent, and open. This connection will sustain you when external affirmation fades. There may be moments when the beauty of where you are surprises you, not because it is dramatic, but because it feels right. You will realize that beauty does not always demand attention. Sometimes it simply supports life. You will breathe easier, think clearer, move with intention. This is the quiet evidence of divine placement. God's guidance often reveals itself through stability rather than spectacle. Do not be afraid to let go of urgency. You do not need to prove that this move was justified. You do not need to validate God's decision to anyone. Fruit will speak in time. Let growth be your evidence. Let peace be your witness. God is not anxious about outcomes, and you do not need to be either. Trust unfolds best when pressure is released. When uncertainty arises, as it inevitably will, return to what you know. God led you here. God prepared you for this. God remains present. These truths do not change with circumstance. Anchor yourself in them. Faith is not the denial of difficulty. It is the refusal to let difficulty redefine truth. You are not walking alone in this season, even when the path feels quiet. God often speaks most clearly in stillness. Learn to listen without rushing. Discernment grows in silence. Wisdom deepens when noise fades. Protect moments of stillness. They will sharpen your direction. One day you will look back and realize that the suddenness of this move was mercy. Had you known every detail beforehand, fear might have stopped you. God led you forward gently, revealing just enough to keep you moving. This is divine kindness. God shields you from unnecessary weight while strengthening you for necessary responsibility. Let your heart remain soft as you grow stronger. Strength without compassion hardens the spirit. God's power is never separated from wisdom. Hold both. Lead with humility, move with clarity, stand with conviction. This balance will keep you grounded even as you rise. You are moving somewhere beautiful, not because the place itself is perfect, but because God's presence orders it. And where God orders, life flourishes. Continue forward with reverence, courage, and trust. The journey is not finished, but you are exactly where you need to be. Remain attentive, remain faithful, remain willing. God is still guiding, still shaping, still unfolding purpose beyond what you can currently imagine. And the beauty ahead is not fading. It is unfolding step by step as you walk in alignment with the one who leads you. As this unfolding continues, you will begin to recognize a deeper invitation hidden within the movement itself. God is not only changing your surroundings, God is teaching you how to remain anchored regardless of where you stand. Stability is no longer coming from location, routine, or predictability. It is coming from relationship. This is a higher way of living. When God becomes your anchor, movement no longer threatens you. Change no longer unsettles you. You learn how to carry peace with you instead of searching for it outside yourself. There will be moments when silence surrounds you more than noise ever did. Fewer voices, fewer opinions, less interference. At first, this quiet may feel unfamiliar, even lonely. But this is not abandonment, it is focus. God often reduces noise when clarity is required. You are being trained to hear direction without distraction, to sense alignment without constant confirmation. In this quiet, discernment matures, wisdom deepens, and your dependence shifts from external reassurance to inner conviction. You will notice that your tolerance for compromise diminishes. Things you once accepted will no longer sit well with your spirit. This is not judgment, it is discernment awakening. God is refining your values to match the weight of where you are going. Integrity will become non-negotiable. Honesty will become essential. You will choose truth even when it costs you convenience, because your spirit now recognizes the long-term cost of misalignment. As responsibility increases, God will also deepen your capacity for restraint. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every opportunity needs to be pursued. Wisdom is learning when to move and when to remain still. God is teaching you timing, how to wait without fear and act without hesitation. This balance cannot be rushed. It is learned through trust, through mistakes redeemed, through patience practiced. You may be surprised by how God protects you in this season, not by removing every challenge, but by limiting their reach. What once would have shaken you now only informs you. What once would have derailed you now refines you. This is growth. Your roots are deeper now. You are no longer swayed by every shift of circumstance. God has strengthened your inner framework so that external pressure no longer dictates your direction. There will be moments of increase, new doors, new influence, new capacity. Receive them with humility. Increase is not proof of superiority, it is evidence of stewardship. God entrusts more to those who understand responsibility, not entitlement. Stay mindful, stay grateful. Let gratitude keep your heart soft and your perspective clear. Pride disconnects, gratitude aligns. You may also encounter moments when progress feels slower than expected. Do not interpret this as regression. God sometimes slows the pace to protect the foundation. Depth matters more than speed. Longevity matters more than appearance. What God is building through you is meant to endure pressure, not collapse under it. Allow the process to complete its work. Rushing would only weaken what God intends to strengthen. As your awareness grows, you will sense a stronger call toward intentional living. No more drifting, no more reacting. You will choose with purpose, speak with clarity, act with direction. God is aligning your inner compass so that you are no longer pulled by impulse or fear. This clarity is not rigidity, it is freedom. When you know who you are and where you are going, distraction loses its power. There will be days when you feel the weight of leadership, even if no one names it. Leadership is not always a position. Sometimes it is influence carried quietly. God places weight on those God trusts. This weight is not meant to crush you, it is meant to ground you. Lean into God when the responsibility feels heavy. Strength flows where surrender remains. You will also learn how to rest differently, not escape, not avoidance, but rest rooted in trust. True rest is not inactivity, it is confidence that God is at work even when you are still. This kind of rest restores clarity and renews strength. Guarded, a rested spirit. It hears God more clearly than an exhausted one. As you continue forward, remember this: beauty is not the absence of difficulty, it is the presence of meaning. Where God has brought you, your actions matter, your words matter, your faithfulness matters. You are not passing through randomly, you are positioned intentionally. Let this awareness shape how you show up each day. You will not always feel certain, but you will feel guided. You will not always feel strong, but you will feel sustained. God does not promise constant comfort, but God provides consistent presence. This presence will steady you when emotions fluctuate and circumstances shift. Return to it often. Let it be your source. One day you will recognize that the sudden move was not the most powerful part of this journey. The most powerful part was who you became by trusting God through it. Courage replaced hesitation. Clarity replaced confusion. Purpose replaced survival. This transformation is the true beauty you are moving toward. As this season matures, you will sense a refining fire at work. Not one that consumes, but one that clarifies. Motives will surface. Intentions will be examined. God is not exposing you to shame you. God is illuminating you to strengthen you. What cannot endure truth cannot endure purpose. And what aligns with truth will grow steadier under the light. Allow this refining to do its work. Purity of heart is not perfection. It is sincerity before God. And sincerity carries immense power. You will find yourself choosing depth over display, substance over speed. The need to impress will fade as the call to be faithful takes root. God is teaching you to value what lasts. Applause is brief, but alignment endures. Recognition fluctuates, but obedience anchors. In this place, you will learn that your worth does not rise or fall with outcomes. Your value is established by God, and from that foundation, you move without desperation. There will be a growing awareness that time itself feels different. Not rushed, not wasted, redeemed. Moments will carry weight. Decisions will feel intentional. God is tuning your awareness so that you live present rather than pressure. Presence is where wisdom speaks. When you are fully present, fear loses its grip on the future and regret loosens its hold on the past. This is a quiet miracle, one that reshapes how you live each day. Expect moments when your faith is exercised not through action but through restraint. Waiting will become a form of worship. Silence will become a language of trust. God is teaching you that strength is not proven only by what you do, but by what you choose not to do. Discernment will guide you away from distractions that look good but lead nowhere. You will learn to recognize what carries life and what merely consumes attention. As you continue forward, your compassion will deepen, not the kind that weakens boundaries, but the kind that understands humanity without surrendering truth. God is pin your heart to carry empathy without compromise. You will listen more carefully, respond more thoughtfully, lead more gently. This is not softness, it is maturity. Strength guided by wisdom becomes a shelter for others without becoming a burden to yourself. There will be times when the path ahead feels narrow. This is not restriction, it is focus. God often narrows direction to protect purpose. Wide paths invite wandering. Focused paths build momentum. Trust the narrowing. It is guiding you toward clarity. You do not need many options when the right one is unfolding before you. You may feel moments of holy dissatisfaction, not with God, but with complacency. Comfort without growth will no longer satisfy you. God is awakening a desire for continual transformation, not restlessness, but holy hunger. This hunger keeps you moving forward without becoming driven. It keeps you learning without becoming insecure. It is a gift. Guard it. You will notice that courage expresses itself differently now. It is no longer reactive or loud. It is steady, thoughtful, unshaken by opposition. God is forming courage that does not need validation. Courage that stands even when misunderstood. Courage that remains faithful when outcomes are uncertain. This courage is born from trust, not ego. When challenges arise, and they will, meet them with perspective rather than panic. You are no longer interpreting difficulty as threat, but as instruction. God uses resistance to refine direction. Pay attention to what each challenge reveals. Wisdom often arrives disguised as inconvenience. Receive it without resentment. There will be seasons of fruitfulness that surprise you, not because you worked harder, but because alignment produces results naturally. Fruit grows where roots are healthy. God has been strengthening your roots. When fruit appears, receive it with humility. Share it generously. Do not cling to it as proof of worth. Let it be evidence of faithfulness. You will also learn to release outcomes more freely. Control will loosen its grip. Trust will take its place. God does not ask you to manage results. God asks you to steward obedience. This freedom will lighten your spirit. Anxiety cannot survive where surrender is practiced daily. At times you may feel the weight of being misunderstood. Let it refine you, not harden you. God sees clearly even when others do not. You do not need to defend what God is establishing. Time will reveal truth with greater accuracy than explanation ever could. Remain consistent. Consistency carries quiet authority. As this journey continues, your gratitude will deepen, not because everything is easy, but because everything has meaning. Gratitude will anchor you during uncertainty and keep you grounded during success. It will remind you that every step forward was guided, every lesson purposeful, every moment held by God's wisdom. There will come a moment when you realize that the beauty you move toward is now something you carry. You are no longer searching for it externally. It has taken shape within you, in your discernment, your peace, your courage, your faithfulness. This is the true transformation. Locations change, seasons shift, but what God builds within you remains. Continue to walk attentively, continue to listen deeply, continue to trust boldly. God's guidance does not diminish as you grow, it becomes more refined. The path ahead will unfold with purpose, and each step will reveal provision suited for the moment. You are not wandering, you are being led. You are not becoming lost, you are being established. The movement that began suddenly is now becoming steady, rooted, and enduring. And the beauty ahead is not fading, it is becoming clearer with every faithful step you take under the guidance of God. Listen to me. Pause whatever else is pulling at your mind right now, because this moment is not accidental. Something has been stirring in your spirit, even when you could not name it. You have felt a strange pressure, a holy discomfort, a sense that time itself is leaning forward, waiting on a decision, waiting on alignment. I did not come with entertainment. I did not come with empty comfort. I came with a warning wrapped in mercy, and mercy wrapped in purpose. God told me to warn you, because what is approaching your life will not arrive quietly, and if you do not recognize it, you may misinterpret the very answer you have been praying for. There are seasons when God speaks in thunder, and seasons when God speaks in whispers. But there are also moments when God speaks through interruption, through an unexpected call, through a sentence that sounds ordinary to the ear, but carries authority in the spirit. You have been asking God for clarity, for direction, for confirmation. You have asked, what is my place now? What is my name in this season? Why do I feel too big for what once fit me? And God says the reason you feel restless is because the label you are wearing no longer matches who you are becoming. Hear this carefully. God does not change your life first. God changes your name in the spirit before circumstances ever shift. Identity always precedes manifestation. That is why Abram became Abraham before nations appeared. That is why Jacob became Israel before strength replaced fear. God speaks titles before people see evidence. And that is why this moment matters more than you think. God told me to warn you. A fine man will call you, not because of charm alone, not because of status or appearance, but because of alignment. This will not be a voice of confusion. This will not be a voice of pressure. This will not be a voice that drains you. It will be a steady voice, a clear voice, a voice that does not need to convince you because it carries peace. And when he speaks, he will say 5 words, only 5. And those 5 words will unlock something God has been preparing for years. Do not misunderstand me. The power is not in the man. The power is not in the phone call. The power is not in the words themselves. The power is in God, who has been orchestrating timing, hearts, paths, and authority behind the scenes while you thought nothing was happening. God has been working in silence because noise would have distracted you from maturity. God has been hiding you, not to delay you, but to protect the weight of what is coming. You thought the delay meant denial. God says the delay meant development. You thought the silence meant abandonment. God says the silence meant training. You thought you were overlooked. God says you were being refined away from the crowd so that when your moment came, you would not crumble under attention. There is a reason you have been misunderstood. There is a reason old connections faded. There is a reason you outgrew conversations that once felt exciting. There is a reason certain doors closed without explanation. God was stripping you of borrowed identity. God was removing labels that people gave you in survival seasons. God was preparing you for a title that cannot be carried by a wounded version of you. When that call comes, it will not sound dramatic. It may even sound simple, but the Spirit will recognize it before the mind can analyze it. Those 5 words will not flatter you. They will position you. They will not inflate your ego. They will awaken responsibility, because a new title is being released, and titles from God always come with weight. A title is not a reward. A title is an assignment. And this is where many people fail to understand God. They ask for elevation, but resist accountability. They want influence, but avoid responsibility. They want recognition, but reject discipline. God will not release a title where character cannot sustain it. That is why you were pressed. That is why you were tested in hidden places. That is why God watched how you handled disappointment, rejection, and obscurity. God observed how you spoke when no one applauded you. God observed how you remained faithful when prayers seemed unanswered. God observed how you chose integrity when compromise would have been easier. God observed how you did not allow bitterness to become your language even when you were hurt. And now God says you are ready to be called something new. The warning is this: do not dismiss the moment because it does not look how you imagined. Do not let familiarity cause you to miss authority. Do not let fear disguise itself as humility. When God opens your ears to hear what heaven has already decided, you must respond with obedience, not hesitation. Some of you are still trying to negotiate with God using an old version of yourself. You keep saying, I am not ready, but God says readiness is not about perfection, it is about surrender. You keep saying, I need more time, but God says time has already done its work. You keep saying, what if I fail? But God says failure is not your threat. Disobedience is. That new title is not about status. It is about stewardship. It is about influence that must be handled with humility. It is about authority that must be exercised with wisdom. It is about visibility that must remain anchored in reverence for God. God is not elevating you so people can praise you. God is elevating you so others can find direction through you. You have carried responsibility long before recognition ever arrived. You have been a leader without a label, a builder without applause, a voice without a platform. And God says, now I am about to make public what I already affirmed in private. But listen to this warning clearly. Elevation exposes everything. It exposes motives. It exposes character. It exposes alignment. And that is why God waited. That is why God delayed. That is why God tested you in the unseen. Because when the title changes, expectations change. When the title changes, access changes. When the title changes, resistance increases. Not everyone will celebrate your elevation. Some will remember the version of you that God already outgrew. Some will try to hold you hostage to who you used to be. Some will question whether you deserve what God released. But you must remember this: God does not consult the crowd when assigning destiny. God consults purpose. That call will not just inform you, it will confront you. It will confront the small thinking you have tolerated. It will confront the fear you have normalized. It will confront the excuses you have hidden behind wisdom. God is calling you higher. And higher always requires separation. You will need to let go of some voices. You will need to adjust some habits. You will need to refine how you steward your time, your words, your focus. Because a title from God demands alignment with God, do not rush this moment, but do not resist it either. When God speaks, movement matters. Obedience unlocks momentum. Delay creates unnecessary struggle. God is not trying to overwhelm you. God is inviting you into agreement with what has already been written. And understand this: the 5 words are not the destination. They are the doorway. What follows will require courage, consistency, and deep dependence on God. You will need prayer more than applause. You will need discernment more than validation. You will need humility more than ambition. God is not elevating you to escape pressure. God is elevating you to handle pressure with grace. God is not giving you a new title to make your life easier. God is giving you a new title to make your life meaningful. There is a seriousness to this moment, but there is also joy. Because when God releases a title, provision follows it, authority follows it, clarity follows it. You are not stepping into uncertainty. You are stepping into alignment. There is something else God wants you to understand before that moment arrives. Because preparation is not only about what you do, it's about who you become while you wait. God is not only changing your assignment, God is reshaping your inner posture. The reason your heart has been stretched lately is because the capacity required for what is coming cannot fit inside the emotional patterns of your past. God is enlarging your ability to carry responsibility without resentment, authority without arrogance, and influence without losing reverence. This is inner work, and it is sacred work. You may have noticed that what once satisfied you now feels shallow. Conversations feel lighter than the weight you are carrying. Distracting. Arms no longer bring relief. This is not dissatisfaction, it is transition. God is recalibrating your appetite. God is teaching you to hunger for substance over noise, for purpose over pleasure, for obedience over approval. When God prepares a new title, He first detoxes your desires. And let me warn you again, gently but firmly, do not romanticize what is coming. Do not imagine elevation without cost. What God releases next will demand consistency when emotions fluctuate. It will require discipline when motivation fades. It will ask you to show up when no one is watching and to remain grounded when many are. God does not promote people to impress others. God positions people to serve His intent in the earth. You are entering a season where discernment will matter more than speed. Not every opportunity will be yours to accept. Not every open door will be yours to walk through. Sometimes God allows options to appear simply to test whether you will choose alignment over excitement. A new title means new filters. You cannot afford careless agreement. You cannot afford impulsive decisions. You must listen deeply, pray honestly, and move deliberately. God is sharpening your hearing because the noise will increase, opinions will multiply, expectations will grow louder, but the voice of God will remain steady, calm, and unmistakable if you stay attentive. Never confuse volume with authority. God rarely shouts, God leads. And those who learn to follow quietly will never be confused. Publicly, there will be moments when you feel exposed, when you wonder if you are enough for what God has assigned. That feeling is not a sign of inadequacy, it is evidence of humility. God resists arrogance but strengthens those who remain dependent. Do not let insecurity silence you, and do not let confidence separate you from God. Walk with courage that is anchored in reverence. Remember this, the title God gives you does not replace your need for God. It increases it. The higher the assignment, the deeper the dependence. The greater the influence, the stronger the prayer life must become. God is not asking you to rely on past victories. God is calling you to daily surrender. Some days you will feel strong, some days you will feel uncertain, but consistency will be your covering. Faithfulness will be your anchor. Obedience will be your protection. You do not need to know every step ahead. You only need to stay aligned with the one who sees the entire path. And when resistance comes, because it will come, do not interpret it as a sign to retreat. Opposition often confirms direction. Growth always disrupts comfort. Expansion always challenges familiarity. God allows resistance to reveal where you still need to trust Him more deeply. Do not fight in your own strength. Stand firm in obedience and let God defend what He authorized. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. God's timing is precise, and precision often feels uncomfortable because it removes our illusion of control. But control was never meant to be yours. Trust is. And trust will carry you where effort alone never could. As this season unfolds, guard your inner life. Celebrate quietly, move wisely, stay teachable. Let gratitude keep you grounded and reverence keep you clear. Do not become intoxicated by momentum. Stay rooted in humility. Stay responsive to correction. Stay close to God, because when that title settles fully, when responsibility increases, when expectations rise, it will not be your talent that sustains you. It will be your alignment. It will not be your confidence. that keeps you steady. It will be your obedience. It will not be your voice that carries weight. It will be the authority of God resting upon a surrendered life. This is not a moment to fear. This is a moment to bow your heart and say, God, prepare me completely. Let God finish the work within you. Let God cleanse what needs cleansing. Let God strengthen what needs strengthening. And when the call comes, you will not step forward as someone trying to become something. You will step forward as someone who already is. God has spoken. God has seen, God has prepared, and now God is releasing. Stay ready, stay faithful, stay aligned. The season ahead will demand much, but it will also reveal the depth of what God has already placed within you. There is a deeper layer to this moment that must not be ignored, because God is not only shifting what you do, but how you carry yourself in the unseen places of the heart. God is refining your inner language, the way you speak to yourself when no one else can hear. You can no longer afford self-doubt disguised as humility. You can no longer rehearse old narratives that God has already rewritten. The voice you agree with internally will determine how boldly you stand externally. God is calling you to align your inner confession with the truth of what He has declared. This is why God has been allowing you to confront quiet fears instead of running from them. Fear loses its power when it is faced in the presence of God. You are learning that courage is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear lead. God is teaching you to move forward even when certainty feels incomplete, because trust is not built on explanations, it is built on relationship. Do not underestimate the importance of stillness in this season. God often does His clearest work when everything else slows down. Stillness sharpens discernment. Stillness reveals motives. Stillness exposes attachments that no longer belong. In stillness, God separates urgency from importance, pressure from purpose, excitement from calling. Protect moments where you are not producing, proving, or performing. Those moments will sustain you when responsibility increases. There will be times when obedience feels lonely. That does not mean it is wrong. Many of God's most defining instructions are given privately because they require personal conviction before public affirmation. You may not always be able to explain why you chose restraint over reaction, silence over argument, patience over haste, but clarity will come later. Peace now is often the reward for obedience you cannot yet justify. God is also teaching you how to release control over outcomes. You are responsible for faithfulness, not results. When you learn to let go of managing how things unfold, you create space for God to move beyond your limitations. God's wisdom often contradicts human logic, but it never contradicts purpose. Trusting God means accepting that His methods may feel unfamiliar, but His direction is always precise. As the new title draws closer, your relationships will also shift. Some connections will strengthen because alignment attracts alignment. Others will naturally fall away, not through conflict, but through divergence. Do not cling to what God is gently loosening. Let gratitude replace grief. Honor the season for what it was and release it without resentment. What God removes is just as intentional as what God adds. You will also need to practice restraint in moments of recognition. Praise can be as dangerous as criticism if it becomes the source of your identity. Stay anchored. Let affirmation encourage you, not define you. Your worth was never given by people, and it cannot be sustained by them. God alone is the source, and staying rooted in that truth will keep you steady when attention increases. Understand this clearly. Growth will require forgiveness. Not because everyone deserves it, but because you deserve freedom. Carrying unresolved offense will distort your vision and drain your strength. God is calling you to walk lighter, not heavier. Release what happened. Release what was said. Release what never came. Forgiveness does not erase the past, but it redeems your future. There will be moments when you feel stretched beyond familiarity, when you sense that God is asking more of you than before. That stretch is evidence of expansion. Muscles grow under tension. Capacity increases under pressure. God is not overwhelming you. God is enlarging you. Stay present, stay prayerful, stay responsive. When you stand in this next season, you will realize that the greatest miracle was not the title itself, but the transformation that made you capable of carrying it. You will look back and see that nothing was wasted. Not the waiting, not the silence, not the tears, not the uncertainty. Every moment was shaping your discernment, deepening your dependence, strengthening your character. There is a sacred tension you will begin to feel as this season unfolds, a pull between what is familiar and what is faithful. Familiarity will try to keep you comfortable, but faithfulness will call you forward. God is asking you to choose depth over ease, truth over convenience, purpose over preference. This choice will not always be dramatic. Often it will be quiet, daily, unseen. But these quiet decisions will shape the strength of your future, far more than public moments ever could. God is also awakening your sensitivity to timing. You will notice that rushing now feels heavy, while patience feels strangely powerful. This is because alignment brings a different kind of confidence, one that does not need to hurry to prove itself. When you move in God's timing, even your pauses carry authority. Even your waiting becomes productive. God is teaching you that rest is not weakness when it is rooted in trust. You may find yourself being drawn away from unnecessary explanations. You will realize that not everyone needs access to your process. Some things are meant to be protected until they are established. God is teaching you the wisdom of restraint, not because you are hiding, but because you are stewarding what is sacred. Silence, when guided by God, becomes a shield. There will be moments when obedience asks you to stand alone in conviction. In those moments, remember that alignment with God is never isolation, even if it feels that way. God does not abandon those who walk with Him. He strengthens them inwardly before He surrounds them outwardly. What feels like solitude is often preparation for leadership. God is also recalibrating how you respond to pressure. Where you once reacted emotionally, you will now respond intentionally. Where you once felt the need to defend yourself, you will now trust God to be your defender. Maturity is not losing passion, it is learning where to place it. God is teaching you to invest your energy where it produces fruit, not where it drains your spirit. As responsibility increases, you will feel a greater need for clarity. Do not be afraid of asking God honest questions. God is not threatened by your sincerity. Clarity does not always come as answers. It often comes as peace in the middle of uncertainty. When peace remains, you can move forward even when details are still forming. You are also learning that obedience does not guarantee ease, but it does guarantee purpose. Difficulty does not mean you miss God. Sometimes it means you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Growth often feels uncomfortable because it stretches areas that were never used before. Let that discomfort teach you, not harden you. God is shaping your leadership from the inside out. Leadership is not about being seen, it is about being trusted. It is about consistency when enthusiasm fades. It is about integrity when shortcuts appear. It is about serving faithfully even when recognition is delayed. God is building something in you that will last longer than attention. There will be moments when you must choose obedience over emotion. Emotions are powerful, but they are not reliable guides. God's voice remains steady even when feelings fluctuate. Learn to anchor your decisions in truth rather than impulse. This will protect you in seasons where clarity is tested. And when you feel the weight of expectation, return to humility. Humility will keep your heart soft and your spirit teachable. God gives grace to those who remain open, who listen more than they speak, who value correction as much as confirmation. Growth accelerates where humility lives. You are stepping into a season where your presence will matter as much as your words. People will sense stability before they hear explanation. Peace will speak louder than persuasion. This is the quiet authority God gives to those who walk closely with Him. Do not forget gratitude. Gratitude will anchor you when momentum increases. It will remind you where you came from and who carried you through. Gratitude keeps success from becoming entitlement and responsibility from becoming burden. And as the path continues to unfold, remember this. Above all else, God is not calling you to impress. God is calling you to remain faithful. Faithfulness will sustain you when excitement fades. Faithfulness will protect you when pressure rises. Faithfulness will keep you aligned when distractions multiply. Stay present, stay prayerful, stay obedient. The work God is doing within you is just as important as the work He is doing through you. And what God establishes in alignment will stand with strength. This is a living season, a weighty season, a purposeful season. Walk it with reverence, courage, and trust. God is near, God is guiding, and God will finish what He has begun. There will come a point when you realize that the greatest shift is not happening around you, but within you. Your reactions are changing. Your tolerance for chaos is decreasing. Your hunger for truth is intensifying. This is not accidental. God is refining your spiritual posture so that you do not respond to life from instinct, but from alignment. You are learning to pause before speaking, to listen before deciding, to pray before acting. These pauses are not delays. They are evidence of wisdom forming. God is also teaching you how to stand firm without becoming rigid. Strength does not require harshness. Conviction does not require aggression. Authority does not require intimidation. God is shaping a firmness in you that is calm, grounded, and unshaken. A firmness that does not react to every challenge because it knows where it stands. This kind of strength is rare, and it is cultivated only through trusting God. You will notice that distractions no longer satisfy you the way they once did. What used to pull your attention now feels empty. This is not loss, this is clarity. God is narrowing your focus so that your energy is not scattered. When God prepares someone for greater responsibility, He simplifies their priorities. He removes excess so that purpose becomes unmistakable. There will be moments when you feel misunderstood, even by those closest to you. Do not rush to correct every perception. Let consistency speak over time. God is teaching you that reputation is not built through defense, but through faithfulness. What God establishes will eventually be recognized, even if it is not immediately understood. As you move forward, you will also feel a growing sensitivity to integrity. Small compromises will begin to feel heavy. Half-truths will feel uncomfortable. God is sharpening your conscience because what you carry next cannot coexist with divided values. Integrity will protect you when no one is watching. It will keep your spirit clean and your direction clear. You are also being taught how to carry authority without losing compassion. God does not separate power from mercy. He entrusts influence to those who remember what it felt like to be unseen, unheard, and uncertain. Your past experiences are not weaknesses, they are wisdom. They will keep you human, grounded, and approachable even as responsibility increases. There will be days when you feel tired, not from doing too much, but from carrying too deeply. In those moments, return to God, not to escape, but to realign. God never intended you to carry weight alone. Dependence is not failure, it is design. When you draw strength from God, renewal becomes possible even in demanding seasons. Do not be surprised if God asks you to let go of something good to make room for something greater. Growth often requires release. Holding on too tightly can limit what God is trying to expand. Trust that what God asks you to surrender is never greater than what He intends to give. As this season matures, you will realize that clarity does not always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it comes quietly, like a settled knowing in you. Our spirit, learn to honor that inner witness. God often confirms direction through peace rather than pressure. When peace remains, even amid uncertainty, it is a sign to move forward. You are not walking into this next chapter unprepared. You are walking into it refined. Every challenge you faced, every delay you endured, every moment of waiting has contributed to your readiness. God wastes nothing. Even what felt confusing was forming discernment. Even what felt painful was shaping compassion. So continue with steadiness, not anxious, not hurried, rooted. Let your life reflect the depth of your alignment. Let your decisions echo reverence. Let your presence carry peace. This is how God's work becomes visible, not through noise, but through substance. And as the path continues to unfold, remember that God is not distant. God is attentive. God is involved. God is faithful. You are not stepping forward alone. You are moving in step with divine purpose, guided by wisdom, sustained by grace, and anchored in trust. Stay open, stay obedient, stay grounded. The unfolding ahead will require courage, but it will also reveal the strength God has already placed within you. And what God brings forth in this season will stand, not because of force, but because it was built in alignment from the very beginning. There will be a moment when you sense a quiet settling in your spirit, a deep assurance that does not shout but stands firm. This is the mark of trust taking root. God is not rushed in you into certainty. God is anchoring you in confidence that does not depend on circumstances. When that confidence grows, anxiety loses its grip. You will begin to move with calm intention, not because everything is clear, but because you know who is guiding you. God is also teaching you how to honor process without idolizing it. You are learning that preparation has an end and waiting has a purpose. There comes a time when reflection must give way to action. Discernment must give way to obedience. God will not keep you in preparation once you are ready to move. When the moment comes, clarity will meet courage, and hesitation will no longer feel wise. You may notice that your prayers are changing. They are becoming less about outcomes and more about alignment, less about control and more about surrender. This shift is powerful. When your prayers mature, your perspective follows. God is drawing you into partnership, not dependency rooted in fear, but trust rooted in relationship. There will be opportunities to step forward that feel larger than your comfort. Do not confuse discomfort with danger. Growth often feels unfamiliar because it requires you to rely on God in new ways. When God stretches you, it is never to expose you. It is to expand you. Trust that what feels demanding is also sustaining. You are also being invited into a deeper level of responsibility for your inner life. Thoughts matter. Attitudes matter. Motives matter. God is refining not only what you do, but why you do it. Purity of intention will protect you from pride and from discouragement alike. When your heart stays aligned, your actions remain clear. There will be moments when you are tempted to look back, to measure progress by comparison, to wonder if another path would have been easier. Release those thoughts quickly. Comparison distorts calling. God's design for your life cannot be evaluated by someone else's timeline. What God is building in you is specific, intentional, and necessary. As you continue, you will discover that obedience brings a unique kind of peace, not the absence of challenge, but the presence of assurance. This peace will guard your decisions. It will help you rest even when responsibility is heavy. It will remind you that God's approval does not fluctuate with performance. You will also find yourself becoming more patient with others. Perspective softens judgment. When you understand how much God has shaped you, grace becomes natural. Leadership rooted in compassion carries lasting influence. God trusts those who remember that authority is meant to serve, not dominate. Do not be surprised if joy begins to surface in unexpected ways. Not excitement driven by novelty, but joy grounded in purpose. This joy will not depend on applause. It will come from knowing you are walking in alignment. Joy will become your strength, steady and sustaining. As the days unfold, keep your spirit open. Remain teachable, stay attentive. God often confirms dire. Shesian through small details, gentle nudges, and timely clarity. Do not overlook these moments. They are evidence of guidance, reminders that God is actively involved in every step. And when challenges arise, as they inevitably will, remember that difficulty does not cancel calling. Pressure does not negate promise. God remains constant through every shift. What He begins, He completes. What He authorizes, He sustains. So walk forward with assurance. Let faith guide your pace. Let trust shape your decisions. Let reverence guard your heart. You are moving into a season that will require courage, but it will also reveal the depth of God's faithfulness in ways you have never experienced before. This journey is unfolding exactly as it should, not rushed, not delayed, purposeful. And through it all, God is present, leading, strengthening, and affirming every step you take in alignment with His will. And now, as everything settles, hear this final truth with clarity and reverence. This journey you are stepping into is not accidental, not rushed, not misaligned. It has been measured by God with precision. Every step behind you was preparation. Every pause was protection. Every moment of uncertainty was shaping discernment. You were never wandering. You were being led. What God is releasing over your life is not merely a change in circumstance, but a confirmation of identity. You are not becoming someone new. You are stepping into what God already knew you to be. The title being released does not elevate your worth. It reveals your assignment, and you will carry it not with pride, but with humility, not with fear, but with trust. When the moment arrives, when the call comes, when the words are spoken, you will recognize them, not because they impress you, but because they align with what God has been forming in you all along. There will be peace, there will be gravity, there will be a knowing deeper than emotion. And in that moment, you will understand that God's timing was exact. So walk forward without hesitation. Not reckless, not timid, anchored. Let obedience be your strength. Let humility be your covering. Let faith be your posture. You do not need to strive for what God has already released. You only need to remain aligned. God goes before you. God stands with you. God sustains you. And what God establishes in this season will stand firm, because it was built in truth, shaped in patience, and released in perfect timing. Remain faithful, remain surrendered, remain attentive. The chapter ahead will demand much, but it will also reveal the depth of God's guidance and the strength He has placed within you. This is not the end of the message. This is the beginning of the assignment. Listen, this is not a gentle whisper meant to be ignored. This is not a thought you can postpone until tomorrow. This is a weight pressing against your spirit right now. And if you feel your chest tight, if your breath feels shallow for a moment, it is because this message was timed for you. God told me to warn you, someone loves you more than you realize, but something is standing in the way. And what is blocking that love is not accidental, not random, and not beyond God's authority. You have mistaken silence for absence, delay for denial, distance for disinterest. But God says you have misread the season. Tonight your understanding is about to shift. You have been asking God questions you were too afraid to speak out loud. You have said, why does it feel like I am unseen? You have wondered why affection seems to arrive almost close enough to touch and then disappears. You have told yourself stories to protect your heart, convincing yourself that if love were real, it would not be complicated, it would not be delayed, it would not feel restrained. But God says you have underestimated both the depth of love directed toward you and the intensity of resistance standing between you and what is meant for you. This is not a message to inflate your ego. This is a message to awaken your discernment. God sees what you cannot see. God hears conversations you will never be invited into. God understands motives hidden beneath polite words and controlled action. And God is saying that someone's care for you runs deeper than what has been expressed. But forces internal, external, spiritual, emotional have interrupted the flow. This is not about fantasy or wishful thinking. This is about understanding that not every delay is rejection. And not every barrier is permanent. God is not asking you to chase anyone. God is not asking you to wait helplessly. God is asking you to understand the moment you are standing in. Because misunderstanding the moment will cause you to respond incorrectly. There are times when love is present but restrained because timing has not matured. There are times when love is genuine but blocked by fear, by unresolved wounds, by obligation, by confusion, or by battles you are not meant to fight for someone else. And there are times when love is real, but God Himself steps in and limits its expression not to punish, but to protect. You assume that if God wanted something to move forward, it would happen easily. But God never promised ease. God promised purpose. And purpose often moves through resistance so that what emerges is refined, grounded, and enduring. You must understand this. God does not tease hearts. God does not awaken hope without intention. If you have felt drawn, if you have sensed a connection that refuses to die quietly, if you have felt the love hovering at the edge of manifestation, it is because God allowed awareness before fulfillment. But awareness without wisdom can turn into torment. And God refuses to let you be tormented by what is meant to mature you. That is why this warning is necessary. Because if you misinterpret the block, you will either idolize the person or resent the process. Both reactions will damage your spirit. Some of you have tried to fill the gap with logic. You have said, if they cared, they would act. You have said, if this were from God, it would be clear. But clarity does not always arrive first. Sometimes conviction comes before explanation. God is not obligated to reveal every step of someone else's journey to you. What God reveals to you is what you need to guard your heart, not to control outcomes. The love that is being blocked is not blocked because it lacks sincerity. It is blocked because it has not yet aligned with truth, responsibility, and readiness. God says you must stop personalizing what is not personal. Not every hesitation is about your worth. Not every delay is a verdict on your value. Some of the strongest barriers are built by fear of loss, fear of vulnerability, fear of failing God, fear of stepping into something that will require transformation. Love is not light work. Love rearranges priorities, exposes wounds, and demands courage. And not everyone who loves you is immediately brave enough to face what loving you will require. But hear this clearly. God is not asking you to wait in confusion. God is asking you to wait in alignment. Waiting does not mean freezing your life. Waiting does not mean lowering your standards or suspending your joy. Waiting means refusing to act out of anxiety. Waiting means trusting that God's silence is not emptiness but preparation. And preparation is often invisible until suddenly it is not. You have been tempted to reach out, to force clarity, to demand answers, to pull what God is slowly untangling. But God says, interference will cost you more than patience ever will. What is blocked is not meant to be pushed open by your hands. God alone removes certain barriers, because God alone understands which walls are protection and which walls are opposition. If you tear down the wrong wall, you will invite harm into a space that was meant to be sacred. There are unseen dynamics at play. There are obligations that have not yet loosened. There are internal wars being fought quietly. There are prayers being whispered by someone who does not yet know how to act without fear. And God is saying that you are not crazy for sensing depth where there appears to be distance. Discernment is not imagination, but discernment must be paired with discipline, or it becomes obsession. God is calling you to maturity in how you carry what you feel. You must also hear this. Part of the warning, not every love that feels deep is meant to move forward immediately. God is not in a hurry, because God builds things that last. You are living in a world that celebrates instant access, instant expression, instant gratification. But God works through seasons, and seasons do not rush because impatience is loud. If something is blocked, ask what is being protected, not what is being withheld. Ask what God is forming, not what you are missing. God says some of you have begun to doubt yourself. You have questioned your discernment because the external reality does not yet match the internal knowing. But discernment does not mean full revelation. It means partial insight given for prayer, not possession. What you feel is not meant to control your actions. It is meant to shape your posture before God. And your posture must be one of trust, not urgency. There is also a deeper truth that must be spoken with honesty. Sometimes love is blocked because God is still working on you. You want clarity from someone else, but God is saying your own heart is being refined. You want reassurance from another voice, but God is teaching you to rest in His affirmation alone. If this love were released too early, you might anchor your identity to instead of anchoring your identity in God. And God will never allow a blessing to replace Him. This is where many people stumble. They say they trust God, but they panic when God does not move on their timeline. They say they believe in divine order, but they try to manipulate outcomes when uncertainty becomes uncomfortable. God says, surrender is not passive. Surrender is powerful. Surrender says, I do not need to force what God has already seen. Surrender says, I refuse to chase what is meant to meet me whole. The person who loves you more than you realize is not your savior. They are not your completion. God alone holds that place. But love can still be sacred. And sacred things are never rushed. God is working on alignment of purpose, alignment of timing, alignment of integrity. And alignment requires pressure. Diamonds are not formed in comfort. Neither are covenants of the heart. You must guard yourself from creating narratives that God never spoke. Do not romanticize struggle. Do not excuse inconsistency. Love that is blocked is not the same as love that is careless. God will never ask you to accept neglect in the name of patience. God will never ask you to shrink yourself to keep someone comfortable. If love is real and from God, it will grow toward clarity, not away from it. The block is temporary, not permanent, but only if both hearts are willing to be shaped by truth. God says, the enemy of your peace is not delay, it is interpretation. How you interpret this season will determine whether you grow bitter or become wise. Bitterness says, I am being denied. Wisdom says, I am being prepared. Bitterness says, I am forgotten. Wisdom says, I am being guarded. God is inviting you into wisdom, because wisdom keeps your heart soft without making it naive. There is also a call here to release control. You have tried to manage outcomes through prayer mixed with anxiety. You have prayed, but you have also worried. You have trusted, but you have also checked constantly for signs. God says, faith does not stalk the promise. Faith rests while God works. If God has shown you something, God does not need your panic to complete it. God needs your obedience, your peace, and your willingness to let go. This is where transformation begins, not when the block is removed, but when your heart no longer depends on its removal to be whole. When you reach that place, you become free, and freedom attracts clarity. Freedom disarms fear. Freedom allows God to move without interference. Many blocks remain longer than necessary because people refuse to release the outcome. They say they want God's will, but they are attached to their version of it. God is asking you to trust His wisdom over your desire. Desire is not evil, but it is not sovereign. God is sovereign. And when God blocks something, even temporarily, it is never to harm you. It is to protect the integrity of what is forming. You cannot rush maturity. You cannot shortcut healing. You cannot bypass accountability. Love that has not been purified will collapse under pressure. God refuses to hand you something fragile and call it a gift. Some of you are realizing now that the ache you feel is not longing for a person, it is longing for assurance. And assurance does not come from another human being. It comes from knowing that God sees you, values you, and directs your path. When that assurance settles in you, you stop grasping, you stop guessing, you stop spiraling. And from that grounded place, everything changes. God says, do not measure love only by expression. Measure it by restraint, by respect, by the willingness to wait until things are right. Immature affection rushes. Mature love considers consequence. If someone is holding back because they fear hurting you, dishonoring God, or stepping into something they are not ready to steward, that restraint may be wisdom, not rejection. Discernment, I'll tell you the difference if you are listening for truth, not validation. This warning is also an invitation to prayer, not prayer to manipulate outcomes, but prayer to align hearts. Pray for clarity. Pray for courage. Pray for healing yours and theirs. Pray without attachment to how God answers. Prayer is not leverage. Prayer is surrender. And surrender creates space for God to act without resistance. You are not late. You are not overlooked. You are not foolish for hoping. But you must hope correctly. Hope anchored in God is steady. Hope anchored in outcomes is fragile. God wants you steady. God wants you whole. God wants you anchored so deeply in Him that whether the block is removed tomorrow or months from now, your peace remains intact. This is the part where many people expect a dramatic conclusion, a promise that everything will suddenly resolve. But God is more interested in your transformation than in dramatic timing. The miracle is not just when love flows freely. The miracle is when your heart remains open without becoming wounded by waiting. That is strength. That is faith. That is spiritual maturity. God says, what is blocked will not remain blocked forever if it is truly meant for you. But God also says that what is meant for you will never require you to abandon your dignity, your peace, or your obedience. Trust that. Anchor in that. Let that truth settle deeper than your emotions. Tonight, you are being called out of confusion and into understanding. Out, anxiety and into trust. Out of striving and into surrender. God sees the love you sense. God sees the block you cannot remove. And God says, I am working on both sides of the situation. Your role is not to force the door open. Your role is to remain faithful, grounded, and whole. Let this message quiet the noise in your mind. Let it still the urge to overanalyze. Let it remind you that God's timing is not punishment, it is precision. And when the moment comes, it will not need to be forced. It will unfold with clarity, peace, and confirmation that leaves no room for doubt. There is something else. God wants you to understand, and it is deeper than emotion, deeper than connection, deeper even than longing. God is teaching you how to hear Him above the noise of your own expectations. Many people believe they are listening for God, but in truth, they are listening for relief. Relief wants immediacy. God wants maturity. Relief wants certainty. God wants trust. And trust is forged in moments where you cannot see the full picture yet choose to remain faithful anyway. Have been standing at the edge of interpretation, trying to decide whether what you feel is hope or self-deception. God says the confusion did not come from Him. God is not the author of inner chaos. The confusion came from trying to resolve a spiritual matter with emotional urgency. When the heart leads without submission to God, it grows restless. But when the heart is anchored in God, even unanswered, questio, and it's lose their power to disturb your peace. There are seasons when God allows longing not to torment you, but to reveal where your roots are planted. If longing shakes you, your roots are shallow. If longing deepens you, your roots are strong. God is not testing you to see if you will endure pain. God is refining you to see if you will remain aligned. Alignment is not dramatic. It is quiet, steady, unwavering obedience when nothing is being explained. You are learning now that not every spiritual experience arrives wrapped in clarity. Some arrive wrapped in tension. Some arrive wrapped in silence. Some arrive wrapped in restraint. And restraint is one of God's most misunderstood tools. God restrains not because He withholds goodness, but because He protects timing. Timing is sacred to God because timing determines whether a blessing becomes a burden or a breakthrough. You would be surprised how many prayers God answers by saying, "Not yet," while simultaneously working behind the scenes. God is never inactive during waiting. Waiting is simply the part of the process where you are being shaped more than circumstances are being shifted. You wanted movement around you, but God chose movement within you. And inner movement is always more significant than external change. There is also a sobering truth. God wants to impress upon your spirit. Love alone is not enough to sustain what God intends to build. Love must be accompanied by wisdom, responsibility, and spiritual alignment. Feelings can be sincere and still be premature. Attraction can be intense and still be misaligned. God sees not only how something begins, but how it will end if released too early. And God loves you enough to prevent endings that would damage you. You are not being punished by distance. You are being protected from premature intimacy. Intimacy without foundation creates dependency instead of partnership. God does not create dependencies. God creates wholeness. That is why God insists on working on both hearts separately before allowing any deep union to form. Wholeness recognizes wholeness. Brokenness clings to brokenness. God is interrupting cycles you may not even realize you were repeating. Some of you have been mistaking intensity for destiny. But intensity fades when pressure rises. Destiny remains steady when tested. God is teaching you to recognize the difference so that you do not. Surrender your future to what only feels powerful in the moment. What God builds does not rely on adrenaline. It relies on truth. And truth withstands time. There is also an invitation here to release comparison. You have looked at others who seem to move quickly, connect easily, and progress without delay. And you have wondered why your path feels slower and more complex. God says your path is not delayed, it is deliberate. What God is forming in you requires depth, not speed. Quick connections often collapse because they were never rooted. God is rooting you. As God roots you, you're deep. Discernment sharpens. You begin to notice patterns you once ignored. You stop excusing behaviors that disturb your spirit. You stop romanticizing uncertainty. You become more attentive to peace than to excitement. This is not you becoming cold. This is you becoming wise. Wisdom does not rush toward what feels good. Wisdom moves toward what is right. God is also training you to trust His voice above your emotions. Emotions are powerful, but they are not permanent. God's word is steady. When emotions rise and fall, God remains constant. That is why God keeps calling you back to stillness. Stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is where clarity is born. When you quiet the urge to figure everything out, you finally hear what God has been saying all along. There is something profoundly liberating about releasing the need to know how things will unfold. The moment you stop demanding outcomes, you start receiving peace. And peace is not resignation. Peace is confidence in God's governance. Peace says, I do not need to force what God is already overseeing. Peace allows you to live fully in the present without anxiety about the future. God is also addressing your self-worth in this season. You have unknowingly tied your sense of value to how visible you are to someone else. God says your worth was never meant to be measured by attention, pursuit, or affirmation from another person. Your worth was established by God before anyone ever noticed you. When that truth settles deeply in your spirit, desperation loses its grip. You are learning how to love without attachment. Attachment demands possession. Love honors freedom. God's love for you is not anxious, not controlling, not demanding. God's love is secure. And God is teaching you to reflect that same security in how you hold others. Secure love does not chase. Secure love does not manipulate. Secure love waits without fear. Some of you are realizing now that block you resented has actually been saving you from emotional exhaustion. Had things progressed too quickly, you might have given more than you were ready to give. You might have poured yourself out trying to sustain something God never intended you to carry alone. God intervened because God saw how much of yourself you would have lost trying to hold something that had not yet matured. This is why God keeps reminding you to return to Him, not as a fallback, not as a distraction, but as your center. When God is your center, nothing else can destabilize you. You can feel deeply without becoming undone. You can hope wide without becoming fragile. You can wait without becoming resentful. That is spiritual strength. God is not asking you to close your heart. God is asking you to guard it wisely. An open heart without discernment becomes wounded. A guarded heart without love becomes hardened. God is teaching you balance. Balance is knowing when to remain receptive while also remaining grounded. Balance is trusting without surrendering your boundaries. There will come a moment when clarity replaces ambiguity. God is not a God of endless uncertainty. But clarity arrives when you are strong enough to receive it without losing yourself. God will not reveal what you are not ready to steward. Readiness is not about desire, it is about stability. Stability is what God values because stability sustains what desire alone cannot. As this season continues, you may notice that your reactions are changing. What once triggered anxiety now invites prayer. What once caused overthinking now prompts reflection. This is evidence of growth. Growth is often quiet. It does not announce itself. It simply changes how you respond to pressure. God wants you to understand that your story is not stalled. It is unfolding. Unfolding does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels like waiting. Sometimes it feels like surrender. Sometimes it feels like letting go of illusions so truth can take their place. And truth, though sometimes uncomfortable, always leads to freedom. You are being shaped into someone who can receive. Love without losing identity. Connection without compromise. Intimacy without fear. That kind of capacity does not come quickly. It comes through seasons. Like this seasons, where you learn to trust God even when answers are incomplete. There is a quiet courage God is awakening in you now, and it does not shout for attention. It does not rush to be seen. It does not beg to be chosen. This courage stands calmly in the truth that God is sufficient, even when answers are incomplete. God is teaching you how to stand without leaning on uncertainty, how to breathe without needing reassurance from circumstances, how to trust without clinging. This is not emotional detachment. This is spiritual authority forming within you. You are beginning to sense that God's work in this season is less about changing your environment and more about changing your posture. Posture determines what you can carry. A heart bent by fear cannot carry responsibility. A spirit twisted by impatience cannot steward blessing. God is straightening you from the inside out, so that when clarity comes, it does not overwhelm you. Strength always precedes increase. God will never add weight to a structure that has not been reinforced. There are moments. Now, when you feel peace settle unexpectedly, even though nothing has visibly shifted, that peace is not accidental. It is evidence that God is anchoring you deeper than emotion. Emotional peace rises and falls. Spiritual peace remains steady. God is training you to recognize the difference so that you do not confuse calm with complacency or excitement with purpose. Purpose carries peace even when the path is unclear. God is also refining how you listen. You are learning to distinguish between your own internal dialogue and the quiet conviction God places in your spirit. One produces restlessness. The other produces clarity. One demands answers. The other invites trust. When you begin to recognize God's voice, not by volume, but by fruit, discernment sharpens. God's voice always leads you toward humility, patience, and truth. This season is also teaching you restraint, not the kind that suppresses emotion, but the kind that channels it wisely. Unrestrained emotion seeks immediate relief. Restrained emotion seeks lasting alignment. God is not silencing your heart. God is teaching it how to speak at the right time, in the right way, for the right reasons. Timing is not repression. Timing is wisdom. You are being trained to resist the urge to explain yourself. You do not need to justify your waiting. You do not need to defend your hope. God alone understands the full context of your journey. When you stop trying to convince others of what God is doing, you conserve spiritual energy. That energy is needed for growth, not debate. There is also a subtle healing happening beneath the surface. All disappointments are losing their power to define your expectations. Past wounds are no longer dictating your reaction. God is gently separating what happened to you from who you are becoming. You are no longer responding from pain, you are responding from wisdom. That shift will change every relationship you encountered going forward. God is teaching you how to remain open without being exposed. Exposure without covering leads to vulnerability. Without protection, God's covering does not isolate you. It shields what is still forming. When God covers something, it is not hidden forever. It is preserved until it is strong enough to be revealed without harm. You are also learning that faith is not proven by how loudly you declare it, but by how consistently you live it. Faith shows itself in restraint, in obedience, in patience that does not grow bitter. Faith remains steady when nothing is being applauded. God values what is done in quiet integrity far more than what is displayed publicly. Without depth, there will be moments when the waiting feels heavy again. That does not mean you are regressing. Growth is not linear. Some lessons deepen through repetition. Each time the weight returns, you are meant to carry it with more grace than before. What once felt unbearable now feels manageable. That is progress. That is strength being built layer by layer. God is also aligning your expectations with reality. Unrealistic expectations create unnecessary suffering. God does not promise perfection. God promises guidance. When you release the demand for ideal outcomes, you become more receptive to divine ones. Divine outcomes may look different than imagined, but they carry peace instead of pressure. You are discovering that contentment is not settling, it is resting. Resting does not mean giving up desire. It means trusting God enough to release control over how and when that desire is fulfilled. Control exhausts. Trust sustains. God is inviting you into sustainability. There is a maturity growing in you that does not need to announce itself. It is seen in how you pause before reacting, how you pray before speaking, how you listen more than you explain. This maturity is attractive not because it seeks attention, but because it carries stability. Stability creates safety. Safety allows love to grow without fear. God is also reminding you that your life is not on hold. Waiting is not wasted time. Every day you live faithfully is shaping you into someone who can recognize truth when it appears. If clarity arrived before the shaping, you might have misinterpreted it. God ensures that revelation meets readiness. You may notice that your priorities are shifting. What once felt urgent now feels optional. What once felt essential now feels secondary. This is not loss, this is alignment. God rearranges priorities so that when blessings arrive, they find space rather than competition. A crowded heart cannot receive new things well. God is also teaching you to Honor your own boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. They allow what is healthy to enter and keep what is harmful out. Gu respects bull. Under is because boundaries preserve dignity. Dignity is essential to love that honors God. There is a quiet confidence growing in you now, a confidence not rooted in outcomes, but in God's consistency. You no longer need constant reassurance because you have learned where your security comes from. That security does not fluctuate with circumstances. It remains steady because God remains steady. When the moment comes for movement, it will not feel frantic. It will feel right. There will be clarity without confusion, peace without pressure, direction without fear. God does not rush what He reveals. Revelation comes with confirmation, not anxiety. You will recognize it not by urgency, but by alignment. Until then, continue to live fully. Continue to grow deeply. Continue to trust boldly. The waiting is not diminishing you, it is refining you. The silence is not empty, it is purposeful. The block is not rejection, it is preparation. God is shaping something strong, something rooted, something enduring. And you are becoming the kind of person who can receive it without losing yourself. This is not delay. This is divine order unfolding with precision. There is a deeper layer of understanding. God is unveiling to you now one that will shake you in the best way from the inside out. God is not merely concerned with the outcome of this love or the removal of the block. God is concerned with who you are becoming in the process. Every hesitation, every unanswered question, every delayed step is a divine shaping of your heart, your character, your capacity to love without compromise and to receive without fear. Do not underestimate the value of this internal work. It is far more precious than any external validation. God is showing you that true strength is not measured by what you can hold on to, but by what you can release while remaining whole. Strength is not in clinging to what you desire most. Strength is in trusting that God is orchestrating every unseen detail. When you can let go of outcomes and still maintain peace, you are no longer vulnerable to disappointment. You are anchored in divine truth. God is raising you to a level of maturity where your stability is independent of circumstance, where your confidence does not rely on attention, and where your joy is not borrowed from the reactions of others. You may feel moments of loneliness in this season, and God wants you to recognize the profound power in that solitude. Loneliness is not a punishment, it is a classroom. It teaches you the art of self-possession under God's guidance. It strengthens the roots of your identity, so that when love finally arrives in alignment, it is not a crutch, it is a partnership. God is teaching you to cultivate your own soul, to fill your own cup, to discover joy in your own presence. This is not selfishness. It is preparation for a love that is worthy of both your devotion and your discernment. There's also a divine elegance in the way God blocks what is not why. At ready to flow, it is not chaos. It is not neglect. It is not oversight. It is a safeguard. God sees the fragility that lies ahead, the patterns that could repeat, the mistakes that might haunt you. And God intervenes to prevent what is premature, to hold back what is unripe, to allow for growth that will make the eventual connection enduring, deep and honorable. When God restrains, it is always in favor of what is holy, sustainable, and life-giving. You are being trained to recognize the difference between desperation and desire, between urgency and destiny. Desperation pushes, manipulates, and fears. Desire rests, prays, and trusts. Destiny waits on God's timetable, not your timetable. And God is shaping your desire so that when the moment arrives, it will not be impulsive. It will be intentional, aligned, and filled with integrity. What God has planned for you will never demand that you compromise your spirit to attain it. There is a sacred patience forming in you now, one that does not count the hours but treasures the preparation. Every day you live faithfully, every step you take without forcing outcomes, every boundary you honor, is a spiritual investment. God is cultivating your discernment so that when clarity is given, you will recognize it immediately. You will not be distracted by what appears urgent or loud. You will be drawn to what is true, steady, and undeniable. God is also teaching you to honor the journey of the one who loves you, even if that love is temporarily blocked. That person is being formed in unseen ways, being tested, being guided by the same divine hand. God is preparing both sides of this connection so that when it finally manifests, it is not fragile, incomplete, or fleeting. It is strong. It is resilient. It is sanctified by patience, discipline, and spiritual alignment. You are learning that faith does not demand proofs or guarantees. Faith is a posture of the heart that trusts God's wisdom even when understanding is absent. Faith is the choice to remain obedient, grounded, and loving even when the path is obscured by silence or delay. And this kind of faith produces a quiet authority in the soul, a strength that others cannot disturb, a peace that others cannot shake, a clarity that others cannot obscure. God is also bringing awareness that love is not a transaction. It is not earned by effort, nor lost by mistakes. It is a divine force that flourishes under alignment, grows in honesty, and strengthens under restraint. The block you experience is a sign that the love involved is significant, sacred, and consequential. God does not preserve trivial matters. God preserves what has eternal implications for your life and the lives of those connected to you. You must guard your heart against projecting impatience, anger, or doubt onto this sacred process. Your spiritual vigilance is required not to control God's timing, but to preserve the peace and clarity of your own soul. Every thought of resentment, every temptation to manipulate the situation, every distraction from God's guidance is a test of whether your heart can remain pure and steadfast. And you are learning to pass that test daily, even in the quiet, even in the wait. There will be moments when it feels as though the block will never lift. God knows that feeling. But God also knows that these moments are crucibles. They reveal whether you are anchored in divine truth or in fleeting circumstances. When you discover that your peace does not depend on outcomes, you are spiritually fortified. You are no longer at the mercy of events. You are under the protection of God. This is also the season where you are being shaped to give love without expectation. You are learning that generosity of heart is not measured by reciprocity, but by integrity. You are learning to express care, kindness, and empathy without tying it to results. God wants you to see that the value of love is not in the immediate response, but in the authenticity of its expression. When you love like this, you reflect God's sovereignty and prepare the soil for blessing to flourish when the time is right and God is refining your vision. You are beginning to see past the surface, past appearances, past delay and frustration. You are beginning to see patterns of timing, intention, and preparation that were previously invisible. You are being equipped to perceive not just what is, but what is being formed. The block you feel is not a barrier, it is a signal of divine architecture at work, shaping reality in ways that will astonish. You when the full design is revealed. God is also asking you to embrace the paradox of presence and absence. You are learning to hold love lightly while remaining fully open. You are learning to anticipate while resting. You are learning to hope without attachment to outcome. This is the mastery God desires for your spirit, a mastery that allows you to receive joy without dependency, clarity without control, and love without compromise. Your transformation in this season is not subtle. Every ounce of patience, every moment of restraint, every act of faith is layering strength upon strength. You are being forged into someone capable of stewarding love that is abundant, deep, and enduring. You will not just survive the waiting, you will emerge capable of embracing it with grace, wisdom, and a peace that radiates from the certainty of God's hand in all things. This is the truth God is revealing. The love you sense, though, blocked now, is being preserved for alignment, maturity, and divine timing. And while it remains unseen, you are not passive. You are being sharpened, deepened, and prepared so that when the block is removed, it will not be a fleeting blessing. It will be a life-changing, spiritually anchored revelation of God's plan. You are being called to endurance, to clarity, to unwavering faith. You are being invited into a maturity that cannot be shaken by silence, impatience, or doubt. And in that maturity, you will find a peace and strength that surpasses. Longing a peace that no delay can diminish, a strength that no block can compromise, a readiness that will make the eventual meeting of hearts nothing short of miraculous. God is not finished. You are not finished. And what is being blocked now is only waiting to meet you in its full intended form when both hearts, aligned and anchored, are ready.